I will admit you to use your video. Let's start. Again, hi, Jonathan. It's great to
Hi,
have you here.
thank you.
Okay, as probably everyone expects, I would like to talk with you about performance testing of databases in general, but more specifically about your tool, which is TAF. And actually, I say your tool, but you wrote another database testing tool before that, which was Autobench 3. So my first question for you is, why did you decide to write these tools? Initially, Autobench 3, and then TAF. Which problems did you want to solve, and how did you want to make them different from existing tools?
Well, really, it's all legacy, right? So in 2000, I started work for a company called Pervasive SQL that had Beatrieve Record Manager as the microkernel and had built an SQL on top of it. And they already had a framework for doing performance testing. Me and another lady wrote a TPCC version for the tool. But in 2005, that's when most of the jobs moved to India. And I applied for a job that I found on Craigslist with this company called MySQL AB. And I was hired in 2005, I think, as the third or second QA person for MySQL AB. And initially I was assigned to the NDB cluster and replication, which wanted more functional, but we did some performance. But in 2007 era, around then, Sun was buying MySQL for $1 billion. The performance team that was there was leaving to form a company called
I can't hear you anymore. Jonathan, I think something is going wrong.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
It auto muted itself.
Oh, okay. I still can't see you.
Let's see. All right, I'm back.
Yeah.
It just like automatically muted my voice and camera.
Oh, sorry. Then I made a mistake with the host controls. Sorry about it.
No problem. So anyway, as I moved into system QA under Trim Persed, they had what was called Autobench, which was a 10,000 line shell script, top to bottom, no logic. And so my first goal was to kind of take Autobench and turn it into Autobench 1+, where I broke everything up into logical units. And then Autobench 2 was some exterior scripts trying to automate all of this. And during that time, when Sun bought us, there was this Clustra DB team that got merged into MySQL. And in that team became my manager, who was my manager for most of my life at MySQL. His name was Vimmen, out of Norway. Extremely smart mathematician, just a wonderful manager. And him and I decided that we should create Autobench 3, which brought all this in, and we used Perl rather than shell scripting. And it allowed us to do more plug-in type of stuff and reporting stuff and have it all in one baked in rather than all these pieces and parts to keep up with. And so Autobench 3 kept growing inside. And then once we started getting in the Oracle Cloud, where we needed different types of management, on the other side of System QA was this tool called Jet, which was kind of this orchestrator driver. And we did magnificent things with Jet and Autobench 3. I mean, and working with Dimitri, who had his own sysbench, we found out quickly trying to test a network load balancer that one sysbench, one client wasn't enough. And if you've ever tried to run, have 10 command windows and switch between them, starting sysbench and any of them to try to get them all to run at the same time, it could be pretty miserable. And with Dimitri, we actually built in ability for all these sysbenches to get up and the threads up and connected and sit there and wait. And then we'd have Jet delete all the files that they look at, and boom, they were off. And with the forced shutdown at the end, we were able to very well run 10 instances of sysbench on 10 different clients, all coming in at the same time. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, after being let go in August of 2025, I wrote the first version of TAF just to kind of get it out of my system, but it really wasn't broken up the way that I wanted to break it up. And then when the foundation, MariaDB, Anna, gave me a chance to do it for the world, I jumped on it. And that's what I've been doing with TAF, is try to take all the things that bothered me in Autobench 3 and not have them bother me with TAF. And the other really cool thing is I get to share this with the world now, rather than being stuck in a dungeon and only getting to share it with 4 other people. So that was a huge driver with me, because what I want to do is make it as simple and as easy for anybody in this world that wants to run a test. They can run a test. They don't have to know every detail of HammerDB. They don't have to know every detail of sysbench to be able to run a reasonable test and get reasonable results.
Okay, right. Well, since you're there, can you explain the concepts of TAF, like the how it runs, the plugin types, these kind of things?
Let's see. Am I able to share?
Oh, yes.
I'm not allowed. It says I'm not allowed to. Will you allow me to share?
Yes. Interesting. Okay, let me look for something that is disabled. You should be able to share it now.
All right, let's see if I can. Just give me this a second. All right. Select. I think it'll be screen 1. Yep. Let's see. Can you see this?
Yes.
So this is kind of I'm more interested in this part over here of the layout of TAF, because you're wanting me to let me close a lot of this. So TAF is broken up into its different parts, right? So the client source, this is where the client lives, if that makes sense, source code wise. And then here we keep database configuration files. So TAF can run against remote systems. It can start the database locally, or if you want it to go against a database that's running somewhere else. Of course, it only has control of local. It doesn't have control. So when you run against remote, it's not trying to do anything with the database. This will be for external tools. This is where all the help is. And so if you do Perl TAF -- help, this is what gets printed out as a usage. But there's different types of quick start guides in here, and I'll be adding more as things expand. So it's basically broken out into different plugins and parts of the database. So there's 2 different concepts here with the database. If we're handling the database, there's the knitting, the starting, getting it up. That's one plugin. But inside the running of the test, that's a separate plugin. When you want to talk to the database in between iterations, maybe you want to collect something, maybe you want to change something. And so the database libs themselves, and right now there's one for MySQL and one for MariaDB, handle just the basic initialization, the starting, the getting it up and running. It has nothing to do, afterwards inside the test as far as talking to the database, other than it set the permissions, it got it ready. There's a different library for talking to it. And just added this profile library, which will allow you to actually go in and profile a run, an iteration. This one uses perf, but it's a plugin. So if somebody wants to write a vTune or whatever profiling tool is your pleasure, you can write a plugin and plug it in and profile using that. There's a reporter lib, and this is something that I'm extending right now. Let's see, where did it go? Let me close this. Close it back in for a minute. So right now, these are all different plugins. And inside Autobench 3, we only reported XML, and then they got sent to a remote server for processing into the database of results. This one has a reporter plugin, and you can have multiple reports per test case. So you're not limited to just XML. You can have JSON, you can have text, you can have whatever type of reports you want to write, you can plug it in. And so you can have every reporter that there is run at the end of a test case. And so one of the main reporters that I rely on for a lot of other stuff is this raw text. And this is all the results and everything captured during the running of the test case. All the iterations, everything's captured into this raw text. And right now I'm writing a back end for all this text, which will have a database with stored procedures for handling results and a Java parser to populate and do compares and stuff like that. Let's see. So these are all the helper libraries, just doing CPU monitoring, file ops, path, loggers, isNumeric, just, all the utilities, if you will, of it. Let's see. And then, as I was telling you, that the database plugin is only for handling like starting and ending, stopping those functions. The SQL lib is where it comes in during the runtime. And so during different parts of the run, you can execute different parts of SQL to grab extra data. Now, the thing that's most interesting about this one is Autobench 3 was one big, huge script. It had a lot of logic in it. It started getting hard to maintain. And this is, when you start out young, you learn in the end, maybe it could have been better. And so what TAF does is it takes all those different parts that used to be, like one solid scripts, and it breaks it out into different units of work. And this will allow for rapid expansions inside of TAF. And so this is the main library of TAF right here. And TAF mainly works off of actions. So these different actions get processed in here. These are the different type of actions that can happen. A net DB exit, a net start DB exit, net start DB run test, and so on and so forth. Over here for a minute. So it mainly works off of properties. And there's defaults for all these properties. There's the main TAF driver property file, but each test suite has properties too, and they all have defaults. And so, for example, you can go in, pull down TAF, and there are these examples of different property files for running TPCC, TPCH, and different sysbench Lua test, including against the new Titus DB, which seems to be a rocket ship. There's also MySQL examples of running the same test. And then here in scripts, this is some of the automation for Hammer DB test, or these TCL scripts. And so if you're looking to modify a lot of what Hammer does, some of these scripts might be the place for you to look at. But then there's extra SQL that's here that can be included throughout the run for different. This one has to do with MariaDB, but to be able to pull. So these are just SQL files that you can feed through during in between iterations and so forth to pull statistics. And then there's these two scripts right here that allow you to join results. And both of them, remember I said the raw text files? Well, this uses those raw text files to generate the results so you can compare, different versions, different commits. You can build your own graphs with it. But the TPROCH, this one breaks it out into the 21 queries that make up the TPCH. And so you can do comparison where it will generate all the queries and do a compare graph of whatever it is that you're feeding it.
Mm-hmm.
These are the test suites. So when TAF runs, these get loaded into TAF. TAF becomes a Hammer TPROC or H, or it becomes sysbench. And then Hammer or TAF makes very generic calls, and these test suite knows out of the property files and command lines what needs to happen inside them. This is the main driver, TAF. And see, do you have any questions?
A lot of them, but maybe it would be better if you continue, and then if you can show us a short demo of it, like a short demo run. It would be great. And then I will ask you questions.
Can you see?
Yes.
You can see my shell script, or my shell.
Yes, I can.
So I'm doing, and let me show them this real quick. I'm doing some archaeology. There was this guy named Amendra that I used to work with that, since he was laid off, got bored and started testing MariaDB and opened up an MDEF.
Mm-hmm.
What's that assigned to me? And it's basically showing a 10% read regression between like 11, 8, 6, and 13. But as we're finding, it's not a commit. It's history. And so I'm breaking out history. And so right now I'm working between 12.01 and 12.02, trying to find like 1.6% regression and point select reads. And so right now I'm building up some archaeology as far as performance goes. And I've just built this and installed it inside TAF. And I'm fixing to run it, and just to show you that it's got something in front of me, that this is what's going to run. It's going to point TAF to this install, and it's going to use this property file. It's going to use this database configuration file. And while it's using this property file, there's several read tests in this property file that I'm not interested in right now. I'm only interested in point select. So I'm overriding what's in this property file. I'm also not interested in all the threads. When you start doing archaeology, you try to find your best pain point, and you narrow it down to that pain point, and you stick with that pain point. And the pain point was 120. In other words, the highest regression I could find through all of that was at 128 threads. So that's what I'm sticking with. I want 4 iterations to make sure it's stable and consistent for each iteration. And the duration is going to be 400 seconds. This is where the database data directory is going to be. That's an NVMe drive. And then, I'm adding a comment, piping it all to a log. Any questions?
No, not yet. Let's keep them for later.
So a lot of what I'm showing you and doing, once I get the back end built, this is my next automation, is to watch it. I just want to make sure it gets up and gets started. And it's up and started. So the database is up and Sysbench is currently loading it, getting ready to run.
Okay. You should run it on the same host as the server, or?
It is running on the same host as the server.
Okay. But no, but actually the question is, can you also run it remotely?
Yes, but you don't. Your server has to be up. TAF will have no control over editing, starting, and stopping a remote server. But if you have a server that's up and remote, TAF you can run TAF against there. There's an action in there just to run TAF, right? And so when you say just run, or just run the test, and so when you say that, it's not going to try to do any type of database editing, starting, stopping. It's just going to start executing that against the database that you told it to, the remote host you've told it to connect to.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I just want to show real quick an example of results that led me. This was the test I ran this morning before building this next one. But this is a text report, and so basically you have the command, and right here is where all the property file content starts. So this is everything that was in the property file. And then you get framework information, you have host information, test suite information, database info, config contents. So this is the way that it was configured. And then any extra information like number of rows, number of tables. And then, as I told you earlier, I like 4 iterations. And so that's iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3, iteration 4, and then that's all of it merged together into this. And this allows me to hunt. And this, once I get to do the coding and extending TAF, this is what will allow TAF to be able to hunt down regressions through commits. Let's not call it regression. The one thing I would like to make sure everybody understands is the performance. So there's 2 types of performance inside MySQL. There were the architects, the Dimitris and the Dans, the Linux, the Windows. And then there was we called ourselves the performance change team, because we watched performance, and if it went up or if it went down, if it regressed or showed gains and it wasn't expected, we went and figured out why and who, and is it okay? So we weren't performance regression testers, we were performance change testers. If it changed, we want to know why. Why did it change? Why is it not the same?
Oh, interesting. Interesting that these teams are distinct. You're shown as standalone server. Can you also use it to test replication or Galera?
Well, I mean, you can always go against the main server and get performance out of the main server. But when it came to doing full performance testing and stuff, this is where Jet came in. And Autobench 3 became more of a client to Jet. And Jet handled a lot of the orchestration and could fire Autobench 3 and build a report using Autobench 3. I think TAF will be a lot the same way. It will be something that someone can run in client mode and build off of. But its main goal is the server, not so much replication. And you know, I only started building this in November, so it's got
Oh yeah,
a long ways to go.
No, of course, it's a young product, of course. No, actually, are you having contributions?
Not yet, but I've been told I will have contributions. There's a person I used to work with named Amindra who opened this MDEF he said he has some things, Sysbench stuff that he wants to contribute. Some of the Mark Callahan tests that aren't in my Sysbench that Mark wrote a blog about that pointed to I think it was the 10.5 release where they went from having buffer pools to having a single buffer pool, that he thought it might be that, and Amindra proved that it was that. And so he opened up an MDEF and said he wants to contribute that back to TAF.
Can we have Amrendra with us so he says hi and we can introduce him?
Yeah,
if you want to, of course.
Hi. Yes. So basically, the idea is that right now, Jeb has implemented the basic Sysbench tests, and whereas if you look at Mark Alam, he does many different stuff. Let's say we do point select, right? But he does point select plus point select with in clause. So let's say select ID from Sysbench table where ID in. So in has got a range of 100 IDs. So those sort of things, I thought that I can include so that we'll have a more coverages. So that we don't have to write a Sysbench command manually. You just say what kind of test you want it, and it will do it. I have something to tell you about the HA. In our MDS, we were calling MDS, means MySQL in OCI cloud. So there we were just hitting the endpoint, that means primary, and also we were counting the, you can say that from, let's say primary has taken the highest GTID, and then your secondary is yet to catch. So we were running SQL query to find out how long it took to catch it up, right? So this is what I think we can do it in Galera also. Like if you have a system setup, let's say one primary, one secondary, or let's say two secondary, and I guess Galera is your sync, right? It's yeah. So there also we can just hit a primary and we can find out the highest GTID, and then we can look into, but only the thing is that TPS trend by the worker threads will be not seen or reported by our TAF, which is like a secondary, right? Because your worker threads in Galera will work with some rate, right?
Interesting.
But yeah, but it's a doable. We can find out the delay, how long Galera secondary node is doing it to catch up the primary. That's like we have a thinking, we can include it. Yeah.
And it's not that hard to look at the results and see if that exists and plug it in as a additional result. So one of the things I'm doing is, we learned a lot in building over the years Autobench 3, the automated test results database, and all these things. But one of the main things for the database is that there's two types of performance results. There's the primary and there's the additional. So for every result set, there is one primary. And so if any, I'm not a web guy, so I hope once I get this back end done, somebody will contribute a website or something to it. But when you go to percent a result, you need to know which result to percent the first time in at looking at a result. That's what primary represents. Is it TPS? Is it query per seconds? And then all the additional, the latencies, everything, how many reads, how many writes. And so it's just a matter of adding the logic there that if this exists, add it in. And so with what he's talking about pulling that out, that could be added to the README file. As we go through the results, it can look at the README file, say, is this here? Okay, I include it in. If it's not there, it doesn't include it in. And then it just automatically becomes part of the results in the back end as an additional result.
Yes. And if you remember, Jeb, for HS solution, we added the delay also. Like in the group replication part, we added how long your secondary is taking time to catch up. Okay, so this will be interesting. Because this is what happens, right? You keep on pumping the load on primary, and secondary takes a time to catch up, and it's a generally matter of concern or matter of interest to know, right? Whether delay is too much or it's like it picks it up fast, or over the like a commit, it's growing or it has gone bad. Yep.
Interesting. Currently, I think that it only supports MariaDB and MySQL, right? But it is a multi-database, actually, a multi-database.
Oh yeah.
So
you know, sometime I'm not a Postgres guy. I admit, you know, when I was working for Pervasive, they had me do all these different competitions against competitors, Sybase, Postgres, MySQL, which crashed at 3.16, I think, when I was trying to test it. But trying to learn Postgres, one of the first things that I learned about Postgres was vacuuming and wraparound transaction ID. And they had, I still love the statement that catastrophic data loss. And in parentheses, it said something to, well, the data's still there, but that's cold comfort if you can't get to it.
yeah.
But yes. I hope, you know, maybe if there's someone out there that likes Postgres and wants to contribute, I'd love to have a plug-in engine of Postgres. I mean, that's all we have to do. You saw the MySQL one, you saw the MariaDB. I just need a PG one that knows how to init, start, how to feed the config, how to stop it. You know, those types, how to set the user, add the permissions. I mean, that's what it does. It just basically gets the database ready to have tests run against it. And then with Sysbench, we just have to figure out how to compile it against, I mean, because the Sysbench that we're using, the Lua, is the open source one. It does run against Postgres. So I just have to figure out how to compile it and point it to Postgres, and then probably extend the test suite to use Postgres.
So anyway, basically, all one needs to do is to implement a maker plugin, right?
A plugin to get the database started, and then to make sure that I know that HammerDB will go against it without recompiling. But right now, Sysbench is only compiling with the Maria MySQL include. We'd have to also have it do the PG include, so it builds in PG as well.
Okay. Well, it could be interesting to have comparisons between different databases, not necessarily or not only Postgres. I mean, a wide range.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you know, anything that we can build a plugin that can install. And so that's the other thing. Let me just see. Am I still online here? Oh, cool, I am. Let me bring this back over. Let me share again. Select Windows, screen one, allow, and where is it? So So when TAF installs the database, it installs it into this database software installs directory. These are all installs that I currently have installed, and I've been running a lot of commits here lately. And I can switch between any of these that I want, but the system doesn't get dirty. If that makes sense to you. Once you blow these away, it's like they never even were on the system. So that's the main thing about TAF, is we try to keep the system clean.
Since MariaDB has a pluggable architecture, did you use it to, or do you plan to use it to test the differences between storage engines? Before you answer, I'm asking it is mostly because I'm very interested in a new plugin that's been developed, which is called the TightsDB. Well, of course, you know about it, but in case people don't know, it's been developed by
Alex.
a very good guy called Alex Padua. Yes.
Yeah.
I believe it is almost ready to be used in a production environment, and it looks very promising. So I'm curious if you tried to run test.
I've actually run tests against it a long time. Work keeps piling up in front of me where I can't get back to certain things. But when he first came to us, one of the first things, and I showed you in there that there was Titus. There were Titus property files in there. That's for TightsDB, because I was very intrigued with it. I mean, he has some locking in there, but the mutex anarchy that most storage engines face is not in his storage engine. That's what makes it. That's what got me so interested. Is once you start removing all those different mutexes and blocks and stuff, that's pretty powerful.
Interesting. I would be interested if at some point you can publish some comparison between Tights and InnoDB.
Well, Alex is publishing them constantly.
Yeah. I trust Alex, but someone else might think.
Well, I think where I hit him hard is because I like to run scale testing, right? That's my favorite thing is, and there's several different ways you can run it. But one of my favorite, you can run it where every iteration restarts the database and warms it up, or restores the database back to what it was and then goes again. But my favorite thing is just to leave the database up and hit it with 4 iterations of 8 threads and keep walking it up to like 256. If I have a big enough system, I want to take it to 4096 threads. And last time I did it, I think he had trouble once I started getting up into like the 128, 256 thread. But that was 4.5 months ago, and I know he's done a lot of work since then. But yes, if I get a chance to, I'm limited on my machines right now. I actually have one remote machine that I'm working on, and as you saw, I'm doing some archaeology of read performance.
Couple of more questions about what you can or cannot do with the TAF. Could you test Java databases if you have a proper plugin?
Well, sure. I mean, as long as you have a client that can talk to it, right? Because what TAF does is it loads the test suite into it, and it's a test suite actually doing the work, right? So as long as Sysbench or whatever is using the proper language and communicating with that Java DB, then yeah, it doesn't. TAF is an orchestrator, right? He doesn't really implement anything that frowns on this database versus this. It's really whatever the database plugin is written to do and whatever the client can talk to. Those are the 2 parts that matter. TAF is just orchestrating them.
Okay.
if that makes sense to you.
Yeah.
So you could take TAF and change it to test all different types of databases and stuff. Even it's a jump off point for anybody. And this is what I love. It's open source. You don't have to use my exact version. You can have your own version.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. One would have to include some metrics to test, not to test, to see what's happening in the Java virtual machine, of course, right? Like when.
Well, it's
Yeah.
it's really how can I explain it? It's really up to how the test suite produces additional results. But if you want to include metrics
Mm-hmm.
from the database, well, you can do that through there's different hooks in there where you can execute SQL or shell files. And so in between iterations, at the start of a test, after a load, at the end of a test, you can have different things execute to extract extra information. Now, is it all automated and all into a graph and stuff like that? Not all of it yet, but I mean, this is a jumping off. Remember, the last thing I released was beta, so it's got a long way to go.
Mm.
So,
Right.
Alex, can I add a point? So, in case Java related metrics, let's say JVM heap usage, this is what you're expecting, heap and non-heap usage.
Yeah.
So I think that's a doable because he has a monitoring plugin. Only the thing is that if we know the ambient name, right, we can write a simple, let's say, plugin or Java, which can fetch the ambient and host, right? So it's a doable. Only the thing is that if there is an interest.
Yeah. No, I'm curious because, well, it's just a personal interest because we also support Cassandra. So, but I don't know if there is interested, if there is interest in general, or if it's just me. So, let's see. Let's see.
Well, I've tried to leave TAF as open as I can as far as being able to plug bits and parts in. And so, I'm trying to make the plugins responsible where TAF is just orchestrating them. And that leaves TAF pretty generic and allows for it to grow in different ways, like you're talking about the Java DB. It could totally go that direction.
Okay. The next question might be a bit more general, so it's not necessarily TAF related, but it's more performance testing related. Okay. Nowadays, databases are just like anything else, are mostly used in the cloud. But in the cloud, I think you have some additional problems because everyone knows about the noisy neighbors problem. Not everyone considers that you always have noisy neighbors problems, right? You only realize that when they are very noisy, but you always have them. So how would you approach database performance testing on an instance like EC2 or something similar?
Well, what I can tell you is my experience when we got pushed into the Oracle cloud infrastructure. And what they did for us is they gave us dedicated machines that got broken up into the OCI 4.8. And so that gave us much better control over our noisy neighbors. And maybe maybe Amendra remembers, but there was some special tweaking they did to make sure that the neighbors weren't able to encroach on the other. And so, that was because they were trying to push us off the real hardware we had. They wanted to do away with that. And that's because when we first went in to start trying to do VMs, it was all over the place. It was still movable, but it was livable. if that makes sense to you. And then the other part of it was the service. We had to test the MDS service, and in that case, we did two types of testing. One where the cloud instance was constantly up and constantly under test. It would just continuously rotate through all the tests. It was just up. And then we had another one that would start a new instance every day, go in and run its test and shut it down. And so these were the different ways that we were testing inside Oracle with MySQL in the cloud.
Okay. Interesting.
And in fact, it expanded there at the end because, us humans, we are bottlenecks. And there's all these work logs that needed to be tested before they could be pushed by the performance team. So they're waiting on us to test their commits and so forth. And I automated that in the spring before I got laid off. I automated that, and that automation used a farm of was it 40 OCI? Andrew, I think it was like 40 OCI VMs. So in their Garrett review, all they had to do was put in a comment that says, please -test -performance. And it would kick off automation that would automatically pull their commit, pull the base commit, build them, test them, and start sending in results to the Garrett review.
Yes, it was quite useful for the developer. So the idea was to test each and every commit, and we had allocated certain VMs for developers, not for any other testing. And when Jeb left, I had taken over and fixed certain things, and only few developers were using, but I don't know now.
Well, interesting.
Yeah. The what I wanted to automate next, which I did get a chance of, was the regression hunting, because the way that MySQL worked is they would create push builds every day of all the different ones, and that's a collection of the last 24 hours of commits. And when a regression is detected, you have to hunt it down. And if it's a commit list of 1, well, that's not much hunting. But if it's a commit list of 300, that's a lot of hunting. And so the whole idea is not only for it to go down and find it, but then to profile it and do all the other work that we would do. So you basically put in the beginning commit, the end commit, and it goes through and does a bisect or a binary search, finding the commit or commits causing the regression, and then profiles it and creates all the stuff for you. And this would have completed like the full cycle of performance testing without human interaction. It would just be us going in and checking the work and make sure that it's doing the work correctly and what it came up with was correctly done. And so we had kind of done that back during BitKeeper days, and then they put us into Git, and then they started shoving us forward, and we really never got that part of it redone again. But it basically would go and find which commit was the one causing the problem.
Right.
So if I'm not wrong, like in OCI Cloud for the MySQL, we were getting a variation, as you're mentioning, right? 60% kind of variation, we have seen it. And yes.
Wow.
So
it really depended on where the machine booted back up.
Okay. Wow. And we have seen the stealing of CPU around 20 to 30%. As per my experience of RDS also, there we have also seen a kind of 20 to 30%. The kind of shape you take, the never noise you're mentioning, right?
Wow. Interesting.
And on the top of it, OCI MDS, right? In OCI Cloud, they were running some background jobs also, something like virus scanner, which will come up at any point of time, and 5% these backgrounds were taking the CPU. So yeah, these things we have seen it.
Okay. Okay, I want to ask you a question. Please don't get angry at me.
Uh-oh.
No, I
It
don't
takes a
think
lot
you
to
will.
make me angry. Go for it.
No, I don't think you will get angry. It's well, it's one question, but we can split into two. Why did you use Perl instead of something more modern, like, I don't know, Python or Rust or Go or whatever? And on the other hand, why Perl 5 instead of Raku, which was supposed to be Perl 6?
Well, it really has to do with 21 plus years of building a framework in Perl, and in that version that I knew I could rapidly produce. While I've done some other languages, I haven't spent near the amount of time. And when I really built TAF, it was because I was bored. And it helped me realize I'm probably never going to retire because I was too bored without work. I had plenty of stuff to do around my property, but it's not the mental thing, and that's what I was bored by. So I built TAF, and then Anna came to me and offered me ability to work with her and Monty in the foundation and to build a new version of TAF. And I wanted to get something built rapid and get it out to the masses. And anyone can take at least the design of it and rebuild it in any language they want. It's just it's allow people to get up and do performance testing quickly without having to know a whole lot.
Okay. The next foreseeable question is, do you use AI to code?
No, not to code. I have put in some for generating headers and stuff like that, for documenting. I want everything documented. I want why this file exists, why this subfunction exists, what you expect out of it, what it's going to do for you, and to get it generated correctly.
Okay. Not even for debugging?
I haven't had to do. What do you mean debugging? Debugging what? The framework?
Yeah.
No. Usually it tells me right where it's hurting.
Okay.
Yeah, Perl's pretty good about pointing out lines and stuff. Going, yeah, you gotta go look at this. So
okay.
if it's running, it's running. If it's not, it's pretty quick to know where you're hurting.
Well, it's interesting that a lot of people think that AI is absolutely necessary nowadays, but actually you don't do it, and yet you built TAF, which is a very good tool, I would say.
Well, thank you very much, but you also have to realize that came from 21 years of building Autobench 3. And so it's like taking what you know and taking all the pain points and getting it all worked out.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope this, not only helps MariaDB and the foundation, but anyone that wants to use it, this is open. You can do all types of automation. So, Percona, all these people that make databases and put their names on them, they can take this tool and use it to test their own stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And if you do go test MariaDB and find stuff, open an MDev. It's going to hurt in the beginning, but everything we know about is stuff that can get fixed and resolved. So please go beat up MariaDB and open some MDevs. You might give me more work like Amindra did.
Oh yeah. Sure. Let me finish with a more human question. So MariaDB Foundation is sponsoring this great project. Well, I know them. We are MariaDB Foundation Silver sponsored, but I'm only curious about one thing. How is it to work with them?
Well, in actuality, it's pretty freeing because they expect me to know where to go and what to do, and they let me do it. And I've been discussing with them after back end this next step of being able to find TAF being able to find regressions on its own, and they love it. And so I just basically bounce ideas off of them. I kind of give them the design I'm going to go for, and they let me go do it. And that's wonderful. But I'm always open to feedback. So if you find something that's not right, something doesn't look right, something that could be better, it's not going to hurt me. It's only going to help me.
Sure, of course. Well, this is great. I think we're finished because I have more questions, but in my unreadable notes, I have a lot of more questions that we didn't cover, but we talked for 1 hour. So
I want to thank you for this. It was very nice of you to offer this platform for TAF and MariaDB Foundation. Thank you very much.
Oh, and thank you for being here. And, I think it's good to keep alive the tradition of having some events, even virtual events, where we talk about database topics. When we meet, when we express opinions, when we learn new things. This tradition is a bit dying right now. The number of events and conferences is decreasing rapidly, and that's no good. So I like to do these kind of things, and I hope to have you again in the future.
I'd love that.
And of course, the
Absolutely.
invitation is extended to Amendra.
Yes. And happy to just get the feedback, like what other peoples want to have more or more coverage in terms of databases. Let's say if you would like to have or some other folks want to have a more additional databases to be tested, then yes, it can be extended and we can work on that. And always I can sync with Jeb for his guidance.
Yeah, sure. It's important, I guess. So just final words. This event is recorded, so it will be available on YouTube in a few days. So people can see our faces again every time they want to. And again, this is a series of events, more or less monthly. The next one will be with Greg Kamnitz, which wrote a database you criticized a few minutes ago. If you want to be there and say what you think about AutoVacuum, it's totally fine.
So that's a good point. How do I know when your events are coming up so that I can follow them? Make sure people know how to find these events.
You can follow Vettabase on social media, well, LinkedIn especially. You can also follow the website, and you can also follow us on Eventbrite. Very good question.
Cool.
Thank you. It's I'm not a marketing person, so I keep forgetting saying these kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's all for now. So thanks again, and bye everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.